On today's show, we're going to break down the Celtics getting a comeback win and kind of a dominant fourth quarter win over the Hornets. We're going to talk about Steph Curry returning to the Warriors, what it means for them, and can they do something in the play-in. And then we're going to talk about most improved player and rookie of the year, all that and more on today's All-NBA show. What is up, everybody, and welcome to the All-NBA show powered by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com/AllCity. I'm your host, Adam Mares. I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, Tim Legler. Legs, it's good to see you, man. Always miss when you're gone.
Yeah, I know. Good to see you. You know, we have a little bit of a longer break this time between shows, but this is from this point forward. All of these shows are going to be heavily consequential, man, because everything's changed. The tone has changed. Everything's just so much more dramatic, more meaningful every night of what teams are playing for to position themselves, and obviously once we get in the playoffs. So I just know every one of these now going forward is going to be like hard-hitting stuff.
And just my luck, the Nuggets have two of their best wins of the year days you're not around. I can't believe it. It's like you're avoiding trying to have to say something nice or make me happy.
Well, I'm really curious to talk to you about this the Denver Portland game, because when I brought up Portland, I think it was last week, very complimentary of Portland. You seemed very dismissive. And so I'm just curious if you feel any different about them having watched them.
I don't. I feel like I have a good handle on who and what they are. I will say, though, why I'm laughing is Atticus and I were having this very conversation before you hopped on. Legs' Portland team looks pretty good. Legler's Blazers are looking pretty nice. I'm like, oh, my God, I'm going to hear
I'm good. Listen, of course, my luck, I got them tonight. We got this national game against the Spurs, and it's got a weird connotation to it because Portland's playing for a ton.
Yeah.
They can get into the 8 spot. They're playing for 8-9. That's a big difference to allow yourself a second opportunity to win a game to get in the postseason.
Huge.
So it's really important. Now, San Antonio, they're not going to get to 1. Wemby's playing for something because he wants to get to the game limit. So but we don't know if he's going to play tonight. He's got the rib contusion. Yeah. So I don't think it's not as consequential for the Spurs. So, but I just hope Portland represents what I've been watching over the last, man, aren't they like 28-11 or something? It's almost half a season of work. Like, for people to just shoo them away, like, okay, yeah, nice little story. I think they're a little bit more than that, man. Look, are they going to beat the Thunder or the Spurs in a first-round series on the road? Of course not. But it's all about the stages of this thing and looking at their team and some of the young players that they have and how they've grown this year. They're a really fun, interesting team to me that you got to show up and play against, and I hope they represent themselves tonight.
Well, they're also an interesting matchup against the Warriors, which is something we might talk about when we get to the Steph Curry one. In fact, I think we will. So when we get to the Steph Curry portion, there'll be more Blazers talk, I think, for sure. But let's get into our FanDuel game breakdown of the day. You know what we do here. We talk about the games, the actual games. And last night's game that we wanted to talk about was the Celtics beating the Hornets 113-102. The Hornets looked incredible all the way up until they didn't. They kind of dominated the first 2.5 quarters of the game. I shouldn't say dominated because they never pulled away by that much, but they were in control. They looked like they could score against the Celtics defense, and they had a lot of things going for them, but it all turned legs at the end of the third quarter. This is what happens with good teams. They know exactly the moment to throw the kill shot. 13-3 to end the quarter for the Celtics. They were down. All of a sudden they're up, and it turned into an extended 29-10 run. This is the rhythm of this game was that it was a phenomenal game. Hornets looked great. And then in a 5-minute stretch, the game was over. And the Celtics had won it and just had to run out the clock.
Yeah, I think both of those things can be true on the same night. I think for Charlotte, you saw a team that continues to represent what we've been talking about and watching for quite a while. They took it to the Celtics. They took it to them right from the beginning of the game. LaMelo Ball was incredible to start the game. He comes out and he's one of those guys that can dip his toe in the water early and he's capable of putting on a show. And he did for pretty much the first 3 quarters of the game, certainly the first 2.5 quarters. Like they had no answer for LaMelo Ball, but they came out and they operated their offense exactly how they do every night, even against this top shelf defense, a team that doesn't make mistakes. They don't give up points in the paint. Their communication defensively, the Celtics, is as good as anybody in this league. They didn't have an answer for Charlotte's tempo and pace and how quickly they were getting into their sets off quick ball screens, LaMelo Ball going off early. Excuse me. And it stayed that way for most of the game. And then you saw why the Celtics are now a team that have captured the imagination of a lot of people thinking this is going to be the team that you see in the NBA Finals, because they do have this gear. Defensively, they can kick in, and the way that they can hit you with a barrage of offense in a very short period of time. They did that to basically end it, get separation, and then it wasn't really dramatic over the last 6 minutes of the game because of what Boston did to close the third and the beginning of the fourth quarter. So both things can be true on the same night. I think you saw the best version of Charlotte, and then you saw the best version of Boston. And as it turned out, the best version of Boston was just more than the best version of Charlotte could muster on this night. And that's why, for me, the Celtics, when you watch them, it's such a consistent product of what you're getting. And Jaylen Brown was incredible in this game to help earn this. And it continues, the season he's had. Last night for me was another one of those exclamation point games that he had, and his performance in turning this game offensively really was the difference between the two teams.
I think I 100% agree with you on the JB part of this. And the interesting thing is 43 minutes for him last night, 39 from Tatum. And part of this is I don't know if all those minutes were needed. Jaylen Brown did not come out of the game in the second half. He played all 24 minutes. And so I'm watching that, and I'm kind of thinking that's curious. They were comfortably up for a while. You probably could have afforded to give him a rest. I almost feel like this was a playoff ramp up. You want to go out there. The Celtics are locked in, I believe, to that 2 seed. Their situation here is looking pretty comfortable. I think they are locked in. Is that correct? Yeah, I think they are. And so now you look at it and say, why do you play that many games? It might be the last chance to, have a game that means something and to get ready for the playoffs. So you give them that kind of workload. I mean, what do you make of that? Both of those guys playing 40 minutes.
Yeah, that's surprising. You just don't see teams typically do it. And whether they won this game or not, I mean, everybody kind of pretty much resigned themselves to the fact it's going to be the 2 seed. They're not going to get caught. They're not catching Detroit. They're going to be the 2 seed. And maybe part of it plays into you're playing this team that's been really hot second half of the season. You might see this team in the first round of the playoffs.
That's a good point.
Too. It's possible. So I think maybe important to kind of, defend them with your guys and how you're going to guard this team to show that you can operate against them, because Charlotte has been really good on both ends of the floor now for half a season. It's not just about their offense, which is flashy and fun. Their defense has been exceptional too. So maybe that plays into it, because you typically don't see teams extending themselves when it's almost a foregone conclusion they're going to be locked into a certain seed, to where you have your top 2 guys playing, basically 40 minutes apiece. You don't really see that very often.
The other note I have here, Jordan Walsh, my guy, made a huge impact on LaMelo Ball. And I think some of this is there's no Kobe White in this game. And for as great as Charlotte is, Kobe White completes the rotation because he gives you another lead ball handler, and you can always have one of those guys on the court. Obviously, you have Flagg and Knueppel. It didn't work out. Without him in this one, the Hornets fell off a cliff, and you could see that they were rudderless in those minutes. But I also credit Jordan Walsh, because LaMelo, for as great as he played, and he just hit some really tough shots. He had a step back that was like a 40-foot step back in this game. That was just an insane shot to take, and he makes it. But Walsh coming in just made a bunch of high-impact plays. And to do that without, it's not like he got this normal rotation. He kind of gets thrown into the game late and makes a big impact to me. It's noteworthy.
No, it definitely was. And I think that one of the differences you saw when this game started to get away from Charlotte and Walsh had an assignment of guarding him, you saw a guy that was doing a pretty good job of chasing him over the top of the screens that were set forward on the floor, that early in the game, he was coming off of those screens and he was walking into no traffic and he was walking into these 3-point shots. What Jordan Walsh was able to do was navigate around those screens, avoid the contact, stay close enough to him. A couple of times he had deflections from behind off the dribble, but other times he was right there, like this presence over his shoulder as he was coming off, so that he couldn't just pull up. He had to continue to get into the lane and then try to figure out what he was going to do. The game was really simplified for LaMelo Ball to start this game. And that's run ball screen, and he's the type of scorer that his first option when you run a ball screen, if you're a scorer, is look for yourself first. That's always option 1. You come off a ball screen, there's a specific reason, because you're trying to create a situation where you've got an open look, whether it's downhill or pull up and shoot the ball. He didn't have any decisions to make in the first half of this game. Everything was available to him coming off the screens. That changed when they put Jordan Walsh on him. You now started to muddy the water a little bit coming off of those screens where now he had to make other decisions, and it affected the game. So give him credit because he played, only 18 minutes in this game, but they were as impactful as just about any 18 minutes in this game by anybody because of what he did defensively, his hustle work on the boards, which he always does a good job there. But I thought it was a factor in the game and why they were able to turn it. And he also, contributed 4 for 4 from the field. That's almost like a bonus with Jordan Walsh. I think for me, it's about effort, defense. He's a good rebounder for his position. He's got good size. Like those things fit. But when he also contributes situation where you take 4 shots and you go without a miss, that's just gravy for the Celtics.
What else stood out to you about this game? What else was interesting? I got a couple notes, but I'm kind of curious what some of your other big perspectives were.
I think for me, it was the continued development. And another guy we're going to talk about later on in the show, conversation around most improved player and some of the candidates and who some of these guys are. I thought Queta in this game
was great.
Was another guy that and we're talking about this, like the tone of the award has changed. Like who's eligible for the award even in terms of like, I'm going to open my mind to every possibility. It used to be like guys like Queta. It was like tailor-made for a guy like that, like basically a reserve. Limited minutes. It's sometimes last year, like not even in the rotation for the Boston Celtics. And now he turns into their starting center. And I just like, he's such a factor because of his size and he's so active that now when you watch them, you're almost like, man, they found their starting center for like a long time to come because he fits perfectly with how they want to play offensively. Yes. You don't have to run anything for him. He cleans up lobs. He's a good offensive rebounder. He's got nice touch around the rim. So I think for me, just the impact of Queta, I kept noticing him as I was watching the game. He was such an omnipresent force the entire time. And it might not lead to like these massive numbers every night, but it's just the look of their team because they've got guards and forwards. They're going to do all of the shooting. And then they've got to have somebody in the middle that affects the game without really ever having to call anything for him. That's exactly what Queta does. So I thought he was just so big and so good in this game. And again, another guy that I think is going to go unmentioned probably in the most improved player award. And I think this is the kind of guy I look at and say he came from a reserve. You don't even know if he's going to last in the league to a starting center on a team that potentially could win a championship or get to the NBA Finals. Incredible.
Yeah, it is funny to think of that. I would call that improvement. I would call that an improved player when you become like the staple of a championship contender. Here's the thing about Queta, and it's true of Walsh as well. They make the game tough for other people because they're going to go hard every time. They're going to a chance they only have 10% at this little tip in. They're going to go for it. The screen that's a little bit high, they're going to run it and they're going to dive. Like they do all the things that make it when you're guarding them. I have to be locked in and I have to work hard. And if you just look at the personality of the top teams in the league, namely Detroit, Oklahoma City, and Boston, I think they're tough. I think you go into all those games like, this is going to be tough. Even if you feel like you have a good matchup, you have to work. That you just know going into that game, I'm not going to get possessions where I get to kind of just catch my breath and stand in the corner. And for the Celtics, it's the team as a whole, but it's especially those guys, Queta, Walsh, the guys that are just going to make Derek White counts into this, even though he's more of a star. They're just going to make every little time you get on your heels, they're going to make you pay with a loose ball or a rebound or something like that. And I think it's an important trait. I don't think you can say this of all teams. Like there are some teams, even good ones, where you walk in and go, okay, it's going to be a shootout. I'll get some possessions off. It'll be easy. Not Boston, not Detroit, not Oklahoma City.
Great point all the way around. And I think that the thing I like about Boston is I think I would sum them up this way the best. They do not typically contribute to their own demise on a given night because they don't turn the ball over. They do an incredible job protecting the paint. So if you have big-time shooting nights against them, and it happens in this league because of the volume, that can happen. They're not going to be a team that you're going to look at and you're going to ever notice the ease with which people are scoring on them, particularly getting downhill, getting into the lane, and having the best of both worlds. They're just not going to do that. They're so connected defensively with their help on penetration that's what top teams do. They don't They don't make mistakes when it's their turn to rotate. They make the rotation, and then the back end protects those guys. They don't turn it over. They're excellent in their sprint back the first 3-4 strides in transition, so they don't give up easy stuff on throw-aheads or easy 2-on-1s or 3-on-2s. Because even when they do turn the ball over, which is rare, they sprint back to get ahead of the ball to make you work on that possession. I just got a lot of respect for them. It's a clean team. They're clean. And it's to me, a direct reflection on the job that Mazzulla has done with this group this year.
All right, here's a question I have for you Celtics, though. If we're looking at concerns, there's always a player that in the playoffs that it's a little surprising that they're less impactful than they were in the regular season. And the guy I wonder for Boston on that is Sam Hauser, who, obviously a role player for him. It's not like he's a superstar or anything. But I do wonder if he's the vulnerability in their defense. And last night there was just a stretch where it felt like they were going after Sam Hauser a lot. He ends up only playing 16 minutes. I think he's maybe not important enough for the Celtics to worry about that, but it is a thing that I wonder that he provides this extra spacing and shooting, but is it possible in some matchups it's just every time down the court in the playoffs it's like we know exactly what we're doing when he's on the floor?
I will tell you this. I've watched them a ton this year. I've seen Hauser so much the last couple of seasons. I don't typically feel that way when I watch him play. I don't feel like, man, this is a guy that's going to get attacked. They found the weak link defensively. And part of the reason is because, look, maybe he doesn't have the lateral foot speed of a Jaylen Brown or a Tatum or a Derek White, or even probably a Jordan Walsh. He's got really good size. He's got tremendous IQ defensively for where he's supposed to be. He competes, so he's always playing hard. But then the biggest reason of all, it's what I just said. They don't allow guys to be picked on. That's just not how they're going to operate. They're going to do everything to protect anybody from being on an island. And so I've never really watched them and felt like, yeah, Sam Hauser, that's a guy that is going to be played off the floor to some extent. Because number one, a lot of times because of their switchability, even if he gets switched on because he's guarding the screener and now some top tier offensive player wants to play against him, so many possessions in this league end up leading into another switch at some point for whatever reason. There's another screen set or a guy penetrates, kicks out, and teams rotate out of that differently so you don't even end up on the same guy for an entire possession. I just don't think the Celtics are susceptible to anybody being targeted because how smart they are, how good they navigate those situations, how good Mazzulla is at preparing them for that, their versatility overall with their wings and their guards defensively. So I'm not as worried about that maybe as you might be.
So I walked away from this game feeling good. If I'm the Celtics, I feel good because they were able to withstand a big offensive run in the first half. They were able to adjust, and they were able to get contributions from a lot of guys and win. I feel good. But if I'm Charlotte, do I also feel a little bit good about this potential matchup? I mean, Charlotte right now just wants to get in. It's almost just their whole focus is just get in. But there is a chance that they could be the 8 seed, go into the play-in, win the game, and now you're matched up with the Boston Celtics. So given that this is a possibility, what would you make of a matchup based on what you saw last night? Is this an interesting one for Charlotte, or is this one of the tougher ones that Charlotte could face?
Listen, I think for Charlotte, I think that in some ways they have a mirror image in their style offensively. Like they're so you could get into a situation. I think some teams like that. Like, okay, this is how we want to play. You guys want to play this way too? You kind of fast and free with their early 3-point shooting and something. You can get into one of those track meet type games. They're going to take that. And Boston is one of those teams that's going to play that way with you. They beat them once this year, pretty handily. I think Charlotte has this cocky swagger of a bunch of young guys that all of a sudden, like overnight, figured this out. And I think they believe no matter who they play, it doesn't matter. Like you have your hands full, and they believe any series they're going into, they're going to believe they're going to win that series. That's how they carry themselves. Yeah. I think it's awesome because, typically you look at these young teams that all of a sudden kind of emerge in front of our eyes. That's what's happened with this team. And you kind of now fast forward to the playoffs and you go, man, playoffs are going to be deer in the headlights, eyes wide open. Like it's going to be so much for them going through it for the first time. Are you with me in that? I don't see that being the case with this team. Like, I see them continuing to operate the same way. That doesn't mean I would pick them to beat the Celtics in a best of 7, but I do think that could be one of the more entertaining and fun first-round series out there.
Well, I 100% agree, and I love that you brought this up because I think it's a good point. I noticed this when they were in Denver. They blew the doors off of Denver in Denver, maybe 8 weeks ago or so. And that was one of my big takeaways. I'm at the arena and I'm watching them, and I'm like, this team is so confident, and they have this like very youthful, I don't want to call it arrogance, but just this like lightness to them. Like, they carry themselves like they're having fun and they just believe. So I definitely think that's part of the fun. Is Charlotte doesn't know like where they belong in the pecking order. In their mind, they could take anybody. So it is a fun trait of theirs, I think. Any final thoughts on this game? Should we move on to the Warriors?
No, let's get on and talk a little bit about Steph Curry and him reminding you and me and everybody how much he means, like how much more fun. Not only obviously the Warriors are, but just the league. Yeah. With Steph Curry's playing and like he's on the schedule and you're looking forward to seeing him play, man. The league lost a lot with Steph Curry's absence, and it's just great to see him back. There
really is nobody as entertaining as him. And sometimes, like in last night's game, it's not even the best game, but he can just have these little pockets where you're like, oh my God, here it goes. It just feels like at any moment it can go. Here's the task I have for you, Legs. I feel like it's too late. I want to get excited about Steph Curry and the Warriors. The play-in out west, I don't know that these teams, like I'm just looking at a first-round matchup for the top teams, Oklahoma City and San Antonio. Maybe the Clippers do something, but the Suns and Blazers, to me, have no chance against those teams. Golden State, I'm just rooting for a reason to believe that they could come out of the play-in. So based on what we're seeing with Steph, just what's the argument?
I don't know, man. It's just so late in the game.
So late.
To inject him into it. And it's like, you're talking about now having to go on the road twice and win 2 games just to get in. I'm not sure that they even make it into a best of 7. I mean, I don't know that I would bet on that. Can you beat, let's say it ended up being Portland, a team that, again, just kind of emerged here and they're playing really good. But, could you go beat Portland on the road with a Steph Curry-led team? Yeah, you can envision that happening. But then go win another one on the road against, a team like Phoenix or who just, got their guys back, a team like the Clippers, like that's tough to think that they're going to win 2 of those. And then if you do, okay, great. You get in and you get to watch more Steph Curry. That's the way I would view it. And like, if Steph Curry's involved in a first round series, like you're guaranteed at least another week to 10 days of Steph Curry, which is good for all of us because he's just that fun to watch. I just think it's too late. And without Jimmy Butler and just looking at the rest of their roster, it's very difficult to think that, okay, Steph Curry is back. Wow, Warriors have a real puncher's chance here because you've added this guy back to the situation. It's hard to envision that happening. Like I'm going to be probably surprised if you even see them in a best of 7. I think it's going to be tough to escape the play-in, which is rough because you're not going to get Steph Curry for an extended period of time after the season ends, and that's just better for the league. It's more interesting.
I agree with you about the 7-game series, but part of me thinks the Warriors are the ultimate 1-game play-in team, just like because you only need Steph Curry to have a big night one time in those to advance. But I am worried. I am wondering like how many minutes he can get up to. There's 3 games left in the year. He's playing 25 minutes, and it feels like kind of a hard cap for him at the moment. And so that's the other question is, can he get to 36, 37 minutes here in basically a week's time? The play-in will be in a week. In a week's time, can he get there? And then the other question for me, the Warriors have always been a team that the turnover bug can become a big issue because they move the ball so much. Like it's required of them to move the ball quickly and make quick decisions with the ball. And when you do that, you're just more susceptible to making the wrong decisions over and over again. And do you think 3 games with a hobbled Steph playing 25 minutes a game, is that the part they can iron out? Because that to me is the biggest thing. Can they just figure out a rhythm and a connection in 3 games?
I think you're right. It's a lot because of the way they play. There's probably more reads that have to be made in the way they play offensively than any team in the league. That's everything about their offense. And so when you have to make more of those and you've got less continuity, there's probably more likely to make mistakes. But the one thing I will say is that for the first time since he went out, there is a clear focus of where the initiation comes from. And that helps shrink the decision-making process for a lot of these guys, because they're playing guys heavy minutes, much more added offensive responsibility than they really would have if they were healthy all year. If they had Jimmy Butler all year and Curry, and they picked up Porzingis when they did and he was healthy, like some of these guys, you're talking about 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th options on their team have been elevated to second options, third options on a nightly basis. So, and as a result, like you're asking guys to get completely out of their comfort zone offensively, what they're able to do at times. At least now it's simplified from the standpoint of all of the activity is going to take place where Steph Curry starts. And how do teams defend his initial action, and they make mistakes on him coming off screens? Everything's predicated on that's what you're counting on. Teams make mistakes guarding him off the ball. That's really what it comes down to. Their offense has been built on since he came into the league. So from that standpoint, the game becomes easier for other guys. Like there's less coming up the floor. Like, okay, where do I go with this? Instead of coming up the floor and you're going, where's Steph? And that's where you at least know things are going to begin. And so I do think that can help guys narrow their focus on what they have to do offensively and stay in their lane a little bit more because of what he's about to go create.
Well, one of the problems that the Warriors have right now is they're down their bigs. So they bring in Charles Bassey, who gives them a double-double last night, 14 and 12. You know, this is the 4th team he's played on this year, so he's just like a patchwork job. But, you know, he has a big-sized body. We're not sure about Horford and Post. We're not sure about their health and return time and everything else. So what do you make if they have to rely on Bassey? What do you make of what you saw from him last night?
No, he played great last night, and he was really active last night. He was all over the offensive glass and played great. I mean, it's so difficult to be sort of, plugged in an NBA game that matters to your team, and and to play well like that when you've got really such limited grasp of what they're even trying to do out there. He just did it through energy and effort and physicality. He's able to go make some stuff happen. So give him credit. Yeah. That's if that's something you're relying on for the Warriors, that's going to be a problem. One thing we had a Warriors game last week, and of course Steph wasn't playing yet, and everybody was pretty much out. And we talked to Steve Kerr before the game, and he had this sort of thought process and wistfulness almost of, man, what could have been? What could have been? With Curry healthy, Butler healthy, he really likes what Porzingis brings to the table, even though when he got there, like he missed so much time unexpectedly when they got him, still dealing with this illness he's been dealing with. But then they did finally get to see him right before we had this game. Porzingis had played some games, played very well. And it really gave Steve Kerr kind of this, you could just tell, like, man, this has been tough. But he saw, like, wow, what this could have ended up being. And instead, you're going to ask guys that should be just significant role players to be high-impact offensive contributors. It's just not a formula for success, man. And it's a shame because it's going to be probably too late with Curry missing as much time as he did. Look, if you give them a home game, at least one home game in the play-in, you kind of feel like, yeah, okay, I can see Golden State pulling this off and getting into a playoff series with one of those top two teams. And then, hey, this will be fun. It's just hard, man. It's hard this late to give him, add him to the mix and think that it's going to be substantial enough to go on the road, win 2 games, get into a best of 7, and make that interesting.
I feel so too, but I am still curious. I still hope it happens because I would prefer to see them in the playoffs. They have the Lakers, the Kings, and the Clippers remaining. And one of the interesting things about the 65-game rule and the play-in, and I don't think this was totally meant to be the way it played out, a lot of these games that shouldn't matter at the end of the year, that like the Warriors have nothing to play for, they're locked into their seed, but they kind of matter because of what we just talked about. They need a rhythm. They need to play because they can't go into the play-in without, getting some cohesion. Then you got guys like Victor Wembanyama, who you mentioned, who need to play a game to qualify for end-of-year awards. They have nothing to play in. So there's these weird games at the end of the year where you look at and say, weird motivations, because there might be guys playing for individual reasons. There might be guys playing for play-in reasons.
I'm glad you brought that up because we were just talking about this, and it really dramatically affects me because I've got another game. One last regular season game after tonight is Sunday, the last game of the season. And there's It's going to be the second game of the night. We know that. So there's only two options. It's either Denver, San Antonio, or it's Golden State Clippers. Now,
oh man, that one. I don't know.
But see, the thing is, I look at it like this, and then, to your point, it's like Golden State at that point will be playing for nothing.
Yeah,
they're locked in at 10. But you've got this player who you just got back late in the year. Do you play Steph Curry in that game and try to get him additional conditioning and rhythm? Or at that point, are you like, you know what? What's one game going to matter? God forbid something happens to him and we don't even have him for the play-in. So like we're sitting in that situation. I mean, I'm trying to think.
Well, equally as important though, Legs, real quick, those two teams might play each other in the play-in, and so there's also the element of how hard do we go and show and give them a feel for what we're doing if we're going to play them next week in a do or die.
That's very, very true, and a lot of that could depend on what happens tonight with Portland, San Antonio, because Portland's trying to catch the Clippers. You know, so the Clippers potentially could be playing for a lot.
Yeah,
that game. But maybe the Warriors aren't playing for anything, and they're not going to be. But, you know, maybe they try to decide to rest Curry. And then you got the Denver-San Antonio situation. Certainly, I think San Antonio will be playing for nothing.
Yep.
And Denver very well
Wemby.
Could be.
Well, yeah,
Denver could be.
Yeah, but Wemby might be playing for.
Well, he only needs one more game, right?
Yeah, and there's 3 to choose from. I don't think he's playing tonight, so there's really going to be 2 games. It could either be the last one.
And one of those
is
Dallas, right?
Yeah.
Isn't it Dallas they play?
You know what? I would give Wemby a big props if he decides, nope, the Denver one is the one I'm going to play. I want that one because I want a rematch of what happened last week. It'd be probably foolish of him, but I would respect it.
They got 3 straight home games: Portland, Dallas, Denver. It sounds like he's not playing tonight. That leaves Dallas, Denver. I think he plays the Dallas game, gets it over with, and then sits against Denver. Yeah. That's most likely what's going to. Now Denver, that last game, could be playing for a lot.
I know. This might have worked out poorly for Denver. Denver needs to get healthy, and they have some guys banged up that I think they need to rest. But now, to your point, they could go 3, 4, or 5, and so all these games at the end kind of matter for them in a key way. And we'll see how Denver plays.
So I'll ask you right now. You've played out all these scenarios. I know you have.
Of course.
What is the optimal in your mind?
Yeah.
What would be the optimal finish to the standings to set up the best path for the Denver Nuggets to get to the finals? Well, knowing you got to go on the road against one of those 2 teams. So clearly you probably would rather, you as a Nuggets fan, would rather play one of those top 2. So tell me who you'd want to play in the first round, second round, and then conference finals.
I don't think there's a good option for the first round because you're really looking at just the Lakers or the Rockets. Or if you drop, you're not going to. So I think it's going to be Minnesota. Here's the thing I'll say about Minnesota. Nobody's talking about these injuries to McDaniels and Anthony Edwards. To me, they have to be 100% for them to be competitive. Both of those guys, and this idea that they're going to miss all this time and come back, even if they are able to play. Now you're talking about being off rhythm and just coming back from injury. That's in your head. To me, I think that Minnesota, as banged up as they are, is probably the best option for Denver. And then San Antonio, I think, is the best option for the second one. I think San Antonio and Oklahoma City are very similar, but there is something to the fact that Denver just got them twice. I think that the Jokic and Wemby thing is very interesting, that your best player is going up against the other team's best player. So I think that's it. But I mean,
so the 3 spot is critical then because at 3 you're going to get the Timberwolves because they're not moving out of that. So whoever finishes 3 gets Minnesota. So you're saying that you think maybe you take your chances on a team that's been banged up a little bit here at the end of the year, and then that also gives you potentially the Spurs in the second round if you're able to beat Minnesota, and that sounds like that would be more optimal for the Nuggets than playing the Thunder. And not only that, if you're a 4, you're playing the Rockets or the Lakers. But I mean, the Lakers could be without Luka. You might not have Luka or Austin Reeves to play the Lakers in the first round. It might be a better choice. But then you're playing Oklahoma City in the second round.
100%. I think whichever side of the bracket Denver's in is the tough side because Oklahoma City and San Antonio are going to be on opposite sides. Denver is the swing team in there that whichever side they go to is going to have 2 of the top 3 teams. So there's just no good path for Denver. It's got to be tough, but Minnesota being banged up, I think, is it's a pretty big deal. They're struggling going into the playoffs, which you never want to be. Let's take a break. On the other side, though, I do want to get Legs' perspective on most improved player and my favorite guy to talk about. We talked about him on yesterday's show. We're going to talk about it today. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, the superstar. You're not the role player you're thinking of, the superstar he's become on the other side. Here always makes you want to rethink your closet. Try to keep fewer things, but better ones. Pieces that are well made, easy to wear all the time. That's why you got to go to Quince. The fabrics feel elevated, the fits are thoughtful, and the pricing actually makes sense. Quince makes high-quality, everyday essentials using premium materials like 100% European linen, and their insanely soft flow-knit activewear fabric. Their men's linen pants and shirts are lightweight, breathable, and comfortable. Basically, the perfect layer for spring. The pants strike the right balance between laid-back and refined, so you look put together without trying too hard. And their flow-knit activewear, moisture-wicking, anti-odor, and soft enough that you'll actually want to wear it all day. And the best part is their prices are incredible, 50 to 60% less than similar brands. This is true. Check it out. You got to go to the website. You'll know what we're talking about. The prices are great, and the quality is very high. Refresh your wardrobe with Quince. Go to quince.com/allNBA for free shipping and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. Go to QUINCE.com/allNBA, all one word. Free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/allNBA. I also want to tell you guys about FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. That's right. Turn $5 into $250 in bonus bets just for getting started. And when every possession matters in the playoffs, FanDuel makes it easy to get closer to the action. This is a good time to place a futures bet. If you really think you know who's going to be the finals matchup and you pick it, you got good odds there. From player props to your favorite stars to all the tools you need to back them up, FanDuel puts player research right at your fingertips so you can check stats, trends, and matchups all in one place and make your pick with confidence. It's everything you need all in one, so don't miss your shot. I'll tell you, Shea for MVP, the odds are still like minus something. He's going to win it. I'm surprised the odds aren't like minus 900 at the moment. Might be a bet worth taking. I just can't see him not winning it. Head to FanDuel.com/allcity to get started. FanDuel, play your game.
Must be 21 or older and present in select states. For Kansas in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in D.C. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York.
Back here, segment 2 of the All-NBA show. I'm with Tim Legler. Make sure you hit the like button if you're enjoying it. Make sure you're subscribed. Let's go to most improved player now, Legs. And if we look at the odds on FanDuel, here's how it breaks down. Nickeil Alexander-Walker is the heavy favorite, minus 1,500 to win this, so it feels like he's a lock. Jalen Duren, second. Deni Avdija, third. Jalen Johnson, fourth. I actually think this is an example where the odds are correct. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Legs, has gone from a very good role player, 3-and-D guy, but with some flaws to his game, to I don't know how much you've watched him lately. Crossover step backs, ISOs, corner threes off movement. He is taking shots that are reserved for your upper echelon players, and he's taking them and making them with confidence, and he kind of forms a big three out there in Atlanta with Jalen Johnson, CJ McCollum. You could throw a Congo in there, but he has been like a cornerstone piece for them. Like he's molding himself into being one of the main guys. I think this one is a lock.
I think he's got a great chance to win. I haven't quite made up my mind yet. I'm still debating. He's right there at the top because you're right. Like when you explode offensively to a level that everybody thought was literally not possible for you as a player, that to me that elevates you into this category. And that's kind of how I felt about him. It was impossible for anyone to tell when he was playing in Minnesota that this was possible. I understand there were other guys that were the focal point and he played more of a role, but any player that's a wing or guard in this league that is, considerably more regarded defensively than offensively. Like, and that's what he was. He was like, man, this guy can really pick up. He can guard anybody, pressures the ball, love him, and hey, if he gives you double figures on any given night, it's a bonus. We'll take it.
In the corner, like catch and shoot only. Yeah, like
basically that was it. To a guy that now is over for a month, he's been averaging 25 points a game for a month. He's averaging 29 here in the first few games of April, shooting 56% from the three.
That's crazy.
His just comfortability at looking like a go-to offensive player, like an initiator, a big-time difference maker offensively, put the ball in his hands, and great things happen. Nobody could have seen that when he was in Minnesota. So that elevates you into this category. And some of these other guys you mentioned, it's interesting because there's just different trains of thought. Some of these other guys are going to get consideration and get votes, but it's almost like you kind of saw a taste of it earlier last year or whatever, and you almost projected that it would be like this for those guys. Jalen Johnson, for example.
He was so good last year.
Just watch Jalen Johnson last year. You kind of know he's headed where he is, right? You knew that all along. You look at a guy like Jalen Duren, I actually think now he's probably increased his scoring a little bit more than I thought, but you saw a real factor last year, and now they've opened up the offense for him, give him more responsibility. So he's up to scoring average probably more than we thought, but the rebounding was there, and you just kind of knew that, like, this is such a young player. Like, he's headed to that category of like an 18-10, 20-10 type of guy. I think you could see that out of him. Avdija is an interesting one because you go, okay, look, if you just look at stats year by year, you'd go, okay, wait a second. The guy averaged 16 and now he's up to like 25. Look what Avdija did the last month of the season last year. He averaged 27 points a game last year over the last like month of the year. So you're going, okay, it's in there. So, to do it for a whole season in meaningful games, I understand that matters, but like you kind of saw that too. Like, okay, this guy's last year, like he's popping. This guy's a lot more to him than Washington knew. This guy can play. So the tone of the award, Adam, I think has changed. That guys now that you almost kind of saw it coming are still eligible when it finally happens.
Right.
Like, as opposed to guys like, Queta in Boston or Colin Gillespie in Phoenix, who was barely in the league and now starting for the Phoenix Suns and had this great year for them. Like, do you think that should be kind of more of the tone of the award? Guys like that.
It's the epitome of it.
Doesn't feel like it. It doesn't feel like it is. It feels like the conversations are more about these guys. And now Nickeil Alexander-Walker, I think, is a perfect example of a guy that's kind of a little bit of both. Yeah, you knew who he was. He clearly was going to be in the league forever and an impact player on good teams. He already proved that. But he also proved that there's a whole nother level offensively that you didn't know he could get to. So he might be the perfect guy for the award. But it does drown out some of these other guys that you don't even know what they are as NBA players that now become major impact players on good teams.
It's all about expectation, really, and I agree with you. Nickeil Alexander-Walker's been in the league for 7 years. This third team he's been on. It's like he's been around. So to make a leap, to your point, where you are thought of as a different mold of player, not even just caliber, but mold. 3-and-D guy, get to the corner, to let's give him the ball and create something. That's the epitome of this award to me, when you can be efficient at it. I also agree with you, though. Colin Gillespie, to me, is the epitome of this. You're talking about a guy who barely played last year. What was it? 194 minutes, 187 minutes the year before that in Denver. So you're less than 300 minutes you have played in the NBA. And all of a sudden this year you play 1,000 minutes and you're a 13-point per game scorer, 5 assists per game, 41% from three. You put up those kind of numbers, that would be most improved to me. And especially when you talk about the identity of the Suns is as much his as it is like Devin Booker's. You watch them play. He is like running the offense. He is connecting passes. They have his fingerprints on every single possession. So to me, he's in there. I do think Jalen Duren's an interesting one, though, because he is different enough from what I think the mold was of him. Like, he handles the ball a lot more. He can do basic. Like, I think there was a thought of him even as early as the beginning of last year, where maybe he's a guy that can only catch the ball if he's right by the basket and lay it in and just be kind of a dunk guy. And now he does provide so much more than that. So I think he has a case, but I agree with you on Jalen Johnson. He's my guy. I love him. The reason he's my guy is because I watched him last year and he was awesome. And now he's the same guy, just a little bit, like regular expectation improvement for that mold of player. It's insane to me that he's on the list.
I hear you, man. So I think it's almost like you'd feel better about a guy like Nickeil Alexander-Walker winning it, because I think it preserves to me kind of what the award should represent. Because he was basically sort of slotted in as a role player at best. And that's what he's going to be. And that's what it looked like. And a good one, don't get me wrong. And you and I both loved him. And when he goes to Atlanta, you're like, man, this is a major difference maker that you're picking up. He's 26 minutes a night. And he's going to guard everybody on the floor. To this, no, man, no way I could have seen this coming from him. And it looks like now this is probably how the rest of his career is going to go for the most part, right? For at least the next several years, he's going to be a 20-point-a-game scorer. And I didn't see that coming.
This is like next year's Dylan Harper going to win this award. He doesn't play 20 minutes a game, but you watch him and you're like, oh, man, this guy can be incredible. Next year he plays 32 minutes a game and his numbers are incredible.
That's a good one. I know, I hear you. That's a great point. There's another guy, by the way, we didn't mention, and I think his injury hurt him because at one point I thought this is exactly what this award's supposed to be, and it was A.J. Mitchell.
Oh, you're right.
I mean, A.J. Mitchell, right. I'm watching him at Oklahoma City at the start of the year. I'm going,
you're
you
right,
got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
Like, this dude is a big-time guard.
Yeah.
And at some point, it's going to come to fruition. I don't know how long a guy like that stays in Oklahoma City and is content coming off the bench and having a chance to win every year. At some point, those guys are like, no, you know what? Especially point guards, it feels like. Like, no. I think I kind of like to have my own team because I think I could do some special things. Yeah. And so, but the injury kind of took him out of the daily conversation because it was a daily conversation with him when you watched them play because they had so many guys out at the start of the year. And it was Jalen Williams a ton, but it was also any other given night. It felt like a couple of those other guys were always out. Caruso was out. Dort missed some time. Wiggins, Wallace, whoever it may be. And then AJ Mitchell's playing every night. You're like, this guy is damn near unstoppable, it looks like. So he was another guy that would have been perfect for this type of award. I feel like the injury took him out of that.
He is, though, classic what we're just talking about. Second-year player who was really good in limited minutes last year and then plays in elevated minutes, and you're like, oh, he's actually really good. He did make an improvement, but it is also, to your point, second-year guy makes a big leap. Not the most surprising thing in the world. Peyton Watson, if he didn't get hurt. I mean, Peyton Watson was playing great, and then
another good one.
Last 8 weeks, basically, he's missed. If he would have
to
had
me,
these 8
he
weeks,
would be very similar in the same category as Nickeil Alexander-Walker.
Changed who he was.
Very similar. He's a three and D, not even a 3-and-D. There's like a defender, and you're hoping he can become a 3-and-D, like consistent 3-point shooter, but mainly just a defender. No real responsibility offensively at all. Slash a little bit, run the floor. To like what he showed us during that stretch, when he had to step up in the absence of Aaron Gordon, and how changed. Not only did it change the narrative on him, it put a lot of money in his pocket.
Yeah,
having that run. Without question. So he's another guy. Again, the injury ended up being probably something that took him out of the consideration for it. You
wanted to come back to Queta, though, for this one. Another guy we didn't mention, but you could make an argument for him just based on, what he's become. And he fits the mold here, too, in that he's a fifth-year player. So it's not like this is just a second-year jump. He's another guy that I don't think does – I think Nickeil Alexander-Walker is the right pick, so I think this one's going to work out. But
you think even look at Boston over the last several years. Like you go, okay, they lose Robert Williams, they lose Horford, they lose Porzingis. Like those are all the guys playing all the minutes at that spot, and you're like, where's it going to come from? And they kind of turned it over to Queta this year, and he's been incredibly consistent and impactful. And he's gotten better and better as the year's gone on. His numbers might not always reflect it because of the way they play, but he's gotten clearly better offensively. He's much more comfortable catching the ball in traffic. And he does better things with it now off an offensive rebound. He's not an automatic kick out. He will gather, kind of position himself, get on balance, and go up and take something strong to the rim with touch. Like he can do that now. He couldn't do that start of the year. Couldn't do it last year. So he's found another gear as well. But it seems like the betting money would be on Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and it's probably right now his award to lose.
Before we get out of here, the last one, I debated this the other day, I think, with Jayson Timpf, but Rookie of the Year, I think we did this like a month ago or 6 weeks ago, and it was like, it's Cooper Flagg. I've moved my perspective in, more towards Knueppel because I think it has nothing to do with their team record. I mean, that's out of a rookie's control. You get drafted to a team and you're just thrown on that team. So I don't factor it in that much other than to say Knueppel doing it what he does, as polished as he is, when his role requires him to be polished, is impressive to me. So to me, I people either feel like this is a really close one. Knueppel won the straw poll on ESPN the other day for Rookie of the Year, but I hear a lot of people that think it's silly to even consider it. So where do you lie on the Rookie of the Year debate?
Kind of feel like people that changed their opinion, because clearly over the first couple months of the season, you're looking at Cooper Flagg and you're watching a generational talent, a guy that's going to be your franchise player, and there's no telling ultimately what his ceiling and upside could be. Like this is what you build around, thinking at some point we're going to be a contender and this is going to be the best player and one of the best players in the NBA. You're not going to say that about Knueppel. Now, Knueppel, if you look at just the consistency of the year playing, and by the way, this has been mainly a stats-based award for the most part. I do personally think you should give some weight to team record from this standpoint. The possessions just matter more.
Yeah.
Like there's more at stake every night when you take the floor and the game's at the start, and this matters tonight to win. And we're trying to win, and there's more pressure, and there's just more consequences of not playing well and more consequences of playing well. And it's not the case when you get to a situation where you're not playing for anything at all. So does that make, like, is that enough to just shift it completely in Knueppel's direction? No, it's not, because at the same time, you have to view these guys and go, just looking at the year they had in terms of production and just, I think, talent. Do you think anybody would argue?
No.
That Cooper Flagg is clearly like the higher ceiling talent of the two?
Well, I think everybody would argue that. I think it's that
right.
Part
Every
is obvious.
Single person should agree to that. Okay, so if that's the case, you look at the year that he had and say, okay, but I have to discount it a little bit because they're not playing for anything every night other than development. They're not playing with consequences in winning and losing. Charlotte is. So that production, that to me, that gives him a little bit more weight. Is it enough to overcome my eyeball test and saying, man, this dude, because he's initiating their offense, he's handling the ball, he's creating offense for other people, he's defending all over the floor, including rim protection for them. Is that enough? The fact that Knueppel had a very, very good year, a great year by rookie standards, on a team that's playing for a little bit more, is that enough to overcome the eyeball test of what Cooper Flagg is every night? I don't know, man, and I'm still kind of undecided. But to me, it's how do you view the impact of playing on a good team? The voters that think that matters a lot more, think Knueppel's got a great chance to win it. I don't know that award typically has carried a lot of weight in terms of where your team finishes.
I actually think it's a tough one, and I
do
know
too.
And I think people might roll their eyes at it because how good Cooper Flagg's been. It does remind me of the LeBron Carmelo year. I don't know if you remember way back to 2003, that season, but it was obvious LeBron was going to be what he was advertised as. But Carmelo was on a team in the Nuggets that made the playoffs that year, and he became, throughout the course of the year, their number one go-to option. He hit a huge shot in the clutch that put Denver into the playoffs, and it was like, okay, yes, LeBron is going to be better, but Carmelo had this incredible year under pressure and sort of making a team mold around him in a way that I kind of feel a little bit similar about that. The difference is, Melo was also a superstar. LeBron was also clearly a superstar. Cooper Flagg's a superstar, and I think Knueppel, I don't know if superstar is the right word. Maybe he becomes that, but he's just such a polished guy. I don't know if he's ever going to be the number one option on a team. We'll see.
And I think that also plays into consideration for this, just in terms of when you are, and he's been great. They're not diminishing anything, but he's not like the guy that's setting the table.
Yeah,
for their entire offense, and that's kind of how you feel about Cooper Flagg when he plays. And look, I don't think it's a coincidence that he had a 51-point game, a 45-point game here at the end of the year, because Cooper Flagg himself also is sitting back listening to the narrative. Here's the thing about these awards. You're going to get a lot of chances to have all-league consideration. You're going to have a lot of chances, if you're good enough, to be in the MVP consideration, whatever. You got years and years and years ahead of you. You only have one shot at this award. And so it matters a lot to these guys. And I think Cooper Flagg was sitting back because, remember, he missed some time with an injury, and Knueppel was going off, and Charlotte was right at that time. Charlotte was surging. So it was like Knueppel every night. I think Cooper Flagg sat back, kind of watched that, and he wanted to finish the year with a bang. And he is doing that because it felt like almost like, man, it really shifted in the direction of Knueppel. Like he's going to win this award. And now here comes Cooper Flagg at the end of the year, kind of just reminding you of what his top side is. And I think that it's made this, I do think it's sort of neck and neck. I think that vote is going to be very tight.
I think Cooper Flagg, I'm so excited for him. And he had this great quote the other day when he was asked about the offseason and his plan to gain weight. And he basically said, I can't wait for my offseason. Like, I'm really looking forward to it. Because, the draft that year, there's a lot of things going on. But you could just tell that was a guy that was like, you know what? 4 40-point games I put up this year. It had a great year. But I can't wait for my first real offseason where I get to go and just become a significantly better player. And I think Cooper Flagg, man, the whole Dallas situation as Dallas Mavericks fans, I think, they have PTSD, and understandably so for the way the Luka thing went down. But part of me thinks they don't quite fully appreciate what they have here. A guy that has 40-point games in a season and just looks like a Giannis type impact player. I'm like, you guys, the best possible rebound has happened where you now have this player that I can't wait to see how he grows. All right, we got one super chat, Legs. Let's check it out, and it's from our friend Psycho Blue. Throws us $20. He says, the B-ball gods foretold the world is going to end when the Suns win a chip, but after last night and the state of affairs in the global theater, the end of the world might come first. Okay, I'll tell you this. The Suns, I don't think they're close to a championship, so I think you can breathe easy. I think they have a tough – as much as I love the Phoenix Suns, their year's going to be interesting here, Legs. Let's talk about the Suns real quickly in this one way. Suns versus Clippers in the play-in game number 1 in Phoenix. Who would you take?
Suns Clippers?
Yeah.
I would take in a play-in game?
One game.
Clippers.
I would take the Clippers too. And now if you go to Portland, who's your team, and Portland has to go into Phoenix, is that a coin flip game to you?
Yes.
I look at this Suns season and I go, man, what a great year. What a great story. But I'm with you. And then I look at this and I go, I'm not convinced they're coming out of the play-in. And they've earned it by how they've played. I think it's been a valiant effort. But I kind of am watching it and I'm like, oh, man. I'm rooting for the Suns, but I'm worried that's how this season goes.
The shame for the Phoenix Suns is it does feel like the narrative would be completely different if they hadn't lost Brooks when they did, if Jalen Green didn't miss as much time as he did, so they had a better chance to figure out like what their top side is offensively, and they ended up in the 5 or 6 spot. Even though you wouldn't look at their championship aspirations any differently, you would still say, well, they're not coming out of this juggernaut in the Western Conference. You would feel like the accomplishment was so much greater, and you're only talking about winning 3 or 4 more games than they did to do that. But instead, it kind of feels like, well, all I know is it's an incredible job that Ott did. I look at their organization differently, as rather than this vast underachievement of the last 3 years, it looks like an overachievement in a lot of ways. So you view them differently. I still feel like they're in this, they might be starting a purgatorial stretch here where they're kind of in the same boat every year. 43 to 46 wins and then having to play one of these monsters at the top if you get into a best of 7. You know what I mean? That's what it feels like. Whereas I feel like if they finish 5th or 6th this year, I feel like our prospects would be greater, like going forward. Instead, it's like, well, at the end of the day, they're a play-in team, and they might not even survive the play-in. And now what? So I don't want to put a damper and rain on their season they've had, but let's just put it this way: it's TBD. It's more to come. We need to see them now, however this ends, at the start of next year, like improve their roster, and at the start of next year, get out of the gate and open everybody's eyes. Like be 10-3 to start the year, and you go, wow, okay, Phoenix Suns, man, like they're picking up now. Where they left off at their best last year. Let's see. That's all I'm going to say. It's undecided with this group.
I fear I'm with you. Let's go to our last thing here. The FanDuels of the night. This is presented by FanDuel. Wolves Magic. That's a good game tonight. Magic favored by 7.5 though. Wolves are reeling. Hawks Cavs. Cleveland 1.5. This one should be a good one, man. This is a good test for the Hawks. It's a good test for the Cavs too. And then Bucks Pistons, Blazers Spurs. That's the one you're calling 3.5. Nuggets have a chance to get their first 10 game. They've never had a 10-game win streak of the Jokic era. They're favored by 22.5 tonight. They could have that would be a big deal for them. Thunder, Clippers, you never know what you're going to get. And then Mavs, Suns. So Blazers, Spurs, I think the game tonight, Hawks, Cavs.
Why does it feel like Denver laying 22.5 isn't enough? It's just that number should be higher. That's one of the highest spreads you're going to see all year.
22.5 is hilarious.
I'm feeling very confident that the Nuggets get to that 10-game winning streak.
You know who their last loss was, though, Legs? You want to know who the last time they lost?
Memphis
Grizzlies.
So they've got their number?
It's a revenge spot for Denver. They're going to be locked in. Everybody, thanks so much for hanging out with us.
We get a good one tonight in San Antonio, man. I'm really looking forward to seeing the Blazers.
Well, here's the thing about San Antonio is I feel like even if they rest their guys, they just play hard. They have enough guys to play. It's the same with Oklahoma City. You go, Oklahoma City won't play Shea. Well, are they still going to play all their other guys that play hard and defend every night? Then that's going to be a tough one. So I think you'll have a good game tonight. Everybody, check him out on ESPN. He's on the call tonight. Thanks so much for tuning in. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you're subscribed. Legs and I are back on Friday, and there's some good Thursday games. Sixers, Rockets, Celtics, Knicks, Lakers, Warriors. We'll have plenty to talk about. We'll see you guys there.
We all silly like the mayor.